We're in the Book of Alma, chapter 52, right in the middle of a war between the Nephites and the Lamanites.
26th year of the reign of the judges, and things aren't looking so good for the Nephites.
There's this new Lamanite leader, Alma, who's trying to hold on to all the cities they've captured.
Yeah, Amalickiah, his brother, was a really tough warrior, but he died suddenly.
Oh, right. I remember that.
It's right there in verse 1. And it came to pass that in the commencement of the 26th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, behold, when the Lamanites awoke on the first morning of the first month, behold, they found Amalickiah dead in his own tent, and they also found the server of Amalickiah to be slain.
Taking over after a leader like that couldn't have been easy. But Alma seems like he can handle it.
He really does. Verse 3 says, Now it was the design of Alma to make it appear that he was preserving the peace of the land. Therefore, he had sent an epistle to Moroni, the captain of the Nephites, with words of praise concerning his exceeding firmness and also his exceeding diligence in preserving the peace and security of his people.
So he's acting all peaceful, but at the same time, he's just strengthening his position in all the Nephite cities they took.
Exactly. Alma is a clever guy. Verse 4 describes the brutal fighting that led to those victories. And behold, they had taken possession of the city of Gid, and they had also taken possession of the city of Mulek and the city of Morianton.
Wow, so that's where our hero Teancum comes into the picture.
Teancum's this experienced military commander known for his bravery and strategy. He's up against a huge Lamanite force.
Sounds like a tough spot to be in.
It really is. Verse 5 tells us, And it came to pass that Teancum saw that the Lamanites were determined to maintain those cities which they had taken.
So he knows a direct attack would be a bad idea.
Suicide. Those Lamanite fortifications were incredibly strong. Instead of just attacking head-on, Teancum gets his own defenses ready and waits for more troops to arrive.
He's not just waiting around, though, is he?
No way. He's always poking at the Lamanites, looking for ways to weaken them. Moroni specifically told him to do that. And behold, it came to pass that Teancum, being a man full of faith and of great diligence in keeping the commandments of God, went forth with his armies and harassed the Lamanites in all their doings.
So he's keeping them on their toes.
Definitely. But things get more complicated in verse 8. And it came to pass that Teancum kept the Lamanites in check, that they durst not come to battle with him. And it came to pass in the 27th year, they did come upon him with a numerous army to battle. But Teancum did stand against them with his armies and did contend with them fiercely.
So not only is he defending the Eastern Front, but he also has to deal with all these prisoners of war.
It's a balancing act, all right. He has to use them strategically, but treat them humanely at the same time.
And all this while Alma is busy on the Western Front, keeping Moroni occupied.
Divide and conquer. It's classic. Verse 13 shows us this. But it came to pass that Alma sent to their support a new supply of men and provisions, and also a new supply of strength to their armies.
By the end of the 26th year, the Nephites are in a tough spot. Their resources are running low, and their morale is probably pretty shaky.
Yeah. We read in verse 14, And thus ended the 27th year of the reign of the judges over the people of Nephi, and thus ended the days of Amalickiah. It's a turning point in the war. When Moroni and his army show up in the 27th year, it really changes the game.
It must have been a huge boost for those exhausted Nephite soldiers.
Totally. And in verse 15, we see Moroni arrives, and it came to pass that Moroni had strength in the city of Bountiful. Therefore he went forth and drove the Lamanites out of that city and gave it into the hands of Teancum.
He doesn't just bring extra troops, he brings hope and a whole new level of strategy.
Right. So their first big goal is to take back the city of Mulek.
Which I'm guessing was super important to the Lamanites.
You got it. Super strategic and heavily fortified.
Makes sense they'd want to hold on to it.
Exactly. At first, Teancum tries to take it head on, but it doesn't work.
The Lamanite defenses were just too strong.
Yeah. Verses 16 and 17 tell us what happened. And it came to pass that Teancum and his army did pitch their tents in the borders of the land Bountiful, and Moroni did go forth with his army to the land of Moroni, and did give it into the hands of Lehi, and took all the prisoners which had been taken away out of the land Bountiful.
So what do they do next?
They realize they need a new plan, something smarter. So they get together for a council of war, and they try to trick the Lamanite commander Jacob into a fair fight, but Jacob's not having it.
So Jacob was pretty cautious.
Very cautious. Verses 19 and 20 talk about this. And it came to pass that Teancum, by the orders of Moroni, caused that a small number of men should go and provoke the Lamanites to battle. And when the Lamanites saw that there were but few men, They were exceedingly rejoiced, and they came out with their armies to battle.
Do we know why Jacob was so careful?
It could be because of his Zoramite faith. They were known for being really strict.
Ah, so since he wouldn't fight them directly, Moroni and Teancum had to come up with a new plan.
Right. And it's a pretty wild one. A feint to draw the Lamanites away from their stronghold. It's a trick used throughout history all about deception.
Like a magician, right?
Exactly. You make the enemy think you're doing one thing while you're actually doing something totally different. In this case, Teancum's the magician. He takes a small group toward the seashore like he's getting ready to attack.
Smart. So the Lamanites fell for it.
Totally. They see Teancum's smaller group and figure they have the upper hand. So they march out to fight him. Verse 22 talks about the beginning of this whole plan. And when the Lamanites saw that Teancum and his men were coming down against them into the borders of the land, they were exceedingly rejoiced and said one to another, Behold, this is the nature of that prophet that hath been spoken of. For behold, he doth come down out of the city bountiful, with only a small number of men.
And while that's happening, what's Moroni doing?
He and the rest of the army are sneaking around under cover of night. They go to the west side of Mulek, getting ready to strike.
So it's a pincer movement. Teancum keeps the Lamanites busy on one side, while Moroni attacks from the other.
Exactly. It's all about timing. One misstep and the whole thing falls apart.
But I'm guessing they pull it off.
Oh yeah, they're masters at this. They know what the Lamanites will do before they do it.
So the Lamanites chase Teancum, thinking they're winning, but they're actually running right into Moroni's trap.
Yep. And Moroni takes Mulek without much of a fight. It's a textbook pincer movement.
Amazing. And Teancum plays his part perfectly.
For sure. Verse 24 talks about Teancum's role. And it came to pass that Teancum did fly before them northward, even until he came into the land of Moroni. And behold, he met the army of Moroni.
He's not just running away. He's leading the Lamanites exactly where he wants them to go.
You got it. And verses 25 and 26 show how quickly Moroni captures Mulek. And it came to pass that Moroni commanded that his army should go against those kingmen, to pull down their pride and their nobility, that they might become the servants of those whom they should take prisoners.
It's a huge win, but the battle's not over, right?
No, not yet. The Lamanites realize they've been tricked, and they try to get back to Mulek.
They're probably worn out from chasing after Teancum.
Exactly. And they walk right into another trap. Moroni and Teancum knew they would retreat, so they placed another Nephite force led by Lehi near the city of Bountiful.
No way. So the Lamanites are stuck between two Nephite armies.
Right. Moroni's army and Mulek and Lehi's army blocking their escape route. It's a total rout. The Lamanites are surrounded, exhausted, and probably feeling pretty defeated. Verses 27 and 28 describe their situation. And it came to pass that they did meet the men of Moroni, who did waste away their armies. And they were so numerous that they could not escape, and they were pursued until they came to the city of Gid, and there they were surrounded.
It's like they're completely trapped.
Totally. At this point, Moroni could have just wiped out the entire Lamanite army, but he doesn't. He gives them a chance to surrender.
Really? That's pretty incredible.
It is. He could have gone for total victory, but he shows compassion instead. We see this in verse 32. And it came to pass that when they had all fallen to the earth, Moroni commanded his men that they should cease shedding their blood. And it came to pass that when the Lamanites had all fallen to the earth, that their sword should be taken from them.
What a powerful moment.
Right. He chooses mercy over revenge.
But not all of the Lamanites wanted to give up, right?
That's right. Their leader, Jacob, refused to surrender even though he was facing certain defeat. He was driven by what the scriptures call an unconquerable spirit.
That's from verse 33.
It is. He leads this desperate attack against Moroni, determined to break through the Nephite lines.
Sounds like a last stand kind of thing.
It really does. And it's possible his Zoramite faith had something to do with it. They believed in complete obedience and never giving up, no matter the odds.
A tragic, but definitely a courageous end.
Absolutely. And while all this is going on, Moroni, who was injured in the fight, keeps urging the other Lamanites to surrender. He understands that every life saved is a victory in itself.
It's interesting how he keeps fighting even though he's hurt.
He's a true leader, dedicated to his people and his cause.
So what happened next? Did the rest of the Lamanites give up?
Most of their commanders saw that fighting was pointless and decided to surrender. They ordered their soldiers to do the same.
It makes you wonder what was going through the minds of those soldiers.
I know. So many of them had already died. What made the rest decide to give up?
It's a big decision, laying down your weapons in the middle of a war.
You're right. And some of the Lamanite soldiers still refused to surrender, maybe out of fear or fanaticism. They ended up being taken as prisoners.
A mix of courage and desperation. It's fascinating.
It really is. Verse 37 describes that last part of the battle. And it came to pass that Moroni caused that the work of death should cease, and that the Lamanites should deliver up their weapons of war. And it came to pass that their weapons of war were taken from them, and they were all carried to the city of Mulek, and they were all bound with cords and put into prison and kept under guard.
So in the end, the Nephites won a huge victory. They took back Mulek and captured a whole bunch of prisoners.
They did, but it came at a high price. Both Nephites and Lamanites lost their lives in this battle.
It's a reminder that even in victory, there's always a sense of loss. Verse 40 really emphasizes the human cost of this whole conflict. And now it came to pass that when Moroni had thus gained possession of the city of Mulek, he caused that all the Lamanites who had joined with the Lamanites who had fled to the city of Mulek should be carried to the city of Bountiful. And there he caused that they should be put to work, to till the ground, and to toil for the support of themselves, and also for the support of the people of Ammon.
The story of this battle shows us that even when there's a winner, everyone involved feels the impact of the fight. It reminds us of the things that connect us even in the middle of a war.
We've been talking about this incredible battle in the Book of Alma, chapter 52.
It's amazing how Moroni and Teancum, these two brilliant military minds, come together to outsmart such a strong enemy.
The whole story is full of twists and turns, and in the end, a hard-won victory for the Nephites.
And as we've been discussing, it's not just an exciting war story. There's so much more to learn from it.
Yeah, totally. We've talked about strategic thinking, the qualities that make a good leader, the role of faith, and the tough realities of war. But there's something else I wanted to point out.
Go for it. I'm listening.
It's the emphasis on mercy, on Moroni showing restraint even when he's winning. He could have completely wiped out the Lamanite army. They were totally at his mercy.
Right. That moment in verse 37 is so crucial. He gives them a choice to surrender, and it changes everything.
Instead of a massacre, he gives them a chance to live, put down their weapons, and stop the fighting.
It really says a lot about him. Even in war, there are limits.
Even when you're facing a fierce enemy, you should try to be just and merciful.
A principle that often gets lost in conflicts, big or small, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in winning and defeating the other side.
Yeah.
And we forget that we're all human.
Exactly. We forget that the people we disagree with are still people, and they deserve our respect and compassion.
But this story from Alma reminds us that there's always another option.
Right. Winning at all costs isn't always the right answer. Sometimes the biggest victory is in showing mercy and offering peace.
Choosing understanding over hatred, even when it's hard.
Think about it. What if instead of putting down the people we disagree with, we tried to see things from their perspective? What if we focused on what we have in common?
What if instead of trying to crush them, we tried to connect with them and understand them better?
It might sound crazy, but it's what we need in today's world where everyone seems so divided.
This story of Teancum and Moroni and the fight for Mulek isn't just an old tale. It's a call to action for all of us.
It's a challenge to be better, to think more strategically, to be more compassionate, to be more merciful.
To aim for peace even in the middle of conflict.
To remember that even when things are tough, there's always room for grace.
That's something for us all to consider.
As we wrap up today, I'll leave you with this question. Where in your own life can you apply these principles? Where can you be more strategic, more resilient, more compassionate? Where can you show mercy instead of fighting back?
The battle for righteousness isn't just something that happens on a battlefield. It's something we face every day inside ourselves in how we treat others and in the choices we make.
Choose wisely.
That wraps up our look at Alma, chapter 52. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for more great discussions like this. We'll see you next time.